I wasn't gonna do these anymore. Because I kind of don't want to keep track of when I play games, and instead just play games. But December is the month of the year where you start thinking about stuff. Favorite stuff, less favorite stuff, stuff you want to get into in the future, and perhaps reflection videos like this are, in a way, inevitable. Nothing about this will be surprising if you know me. I played a bunch of games in 2021, but I played exactly 5 games from 2021. So, slim pickings for a list. Some of them led me to new experiences, thoughts, and brain doings, you know, the kind of stuff this channel runs on these days, and some of them were less that. If nothing else, 2021 was the year that proved I can still enjoy just about anything you put in front of me. At a time in my life where I was worried that my tastes were solidifying into inconvenient positions. Oh gosh, what if I can only play these weird puzzle games for the rest of my days? The benevolent, though only by comparison to its predecessor, 2021, saw fit to prove that I can still have fun playing a Halo game. Halo Infinite, which just so happens to be entry number 5 on this list, is a game I started playing the night before I wrote this paragraph. It has been a long time since Halo has been in my life. Xbox LAN parties in high school, a friend guiding me through the campaigns of the first 2 games, and a whole lot of racing maps in custom reach levels. That was a thing. And that was all I needed out of this franchise. Alliances were made and adhered to. I was a fellow of the PlayStation Collective, after all. I guess this is to be expected. I've always had space in my brain for some kind of shooter, and right now, Halo Infinite could very well occupy that space for me, assuming I stick to it. It's a big loud gun game that I'm holding my own in, even though I seem to be the only person in any given game who can't find the gravity hammer. I expect it to last exactly as long as it needs to for me. It could vanish as soon as tomorrow. For all I know, I'm already sick of it by the time I'm recording this script in the future, but it doesn't matter because it's done its job, reminding me not to be too precious with my game time, and to not be stubborn and obstinate when friends tell me to join them in playing something that is free. Within reason, looking at you, all my friends who play Final Fantasy XIV. I'll get there when I get there. And if it does disappear for me tomorrow, that should be just fine. Halo Infinite doesn't really stand that far apart from the next game on this list, in spirit or in practice. Back 4 Blood is another thing that happened. With an entry fee of 80 Canadian dollars, a bit steep for something that may or may not turn out to be the Left 4 Dead we all wanted, Back 4 Blood seems like a thing that came and went already, with its actual staying power kinda up in the air. It has some steep competition, L4D2 having remained a constant in my group gaming rotation well into 2015, it's kind of a tall order. And L4D B4B is not. I mean, it's darn close. Like, darn close. I am into this game. It feels smaller than Left 4 Dead somehow, but the team building exercise this game can become is so much more involved than L4D ever managed to become for me, or at least more so than I remember it being. There really isn't much to this game, aside from the addition of a card-based upgrade system. The comparison between Left 4 Dead and Back 4 Blood is kind of the most interesting thing about it. It's a low-stakes, uncomplicated, very cathartic, and at times properly difficult exercise in mowing down crowds of zombies with whatever weapon happens to be most conveniently placed around you. A pretty universally appealing prospect when you get right down to it. It has proven to be a fun evening activity with online friends. Maybe it was worth the price of admission, as this is a game I often find myself thinking about when I feel like I need a shot of fun. That's basically all it brings to the table. A few fingers of fun and a highball glass and a chance to catch up with some buddies. The good old dose of multiplayer. A one-player game gamer like me needs to ward off the encroaching darkness from within. And this is me saying that the rest of the entries on this list, they're all single player, and we're gonna get them rolling with Resident Evil Village. It's pretty inelegant to put a game that I just finished making a 35-minute video on, roughly 10 minutes of it actually being about the game in question, on a list immediately after posting said video, I know, but Resident Evil Village was never not going to have a spot on this rundown. I have to hand it to Capcom. This comeback they are still pulling off is impressive to say the least. Yes, we are still in the comeback phase because we saw how far they fell, right? It's gonna take a while, but I'm not sure I could have asked for a better game to continue on from where 7 left off. If you skipped the Resident Evil retrospective video, then let it be known that RE8 is a game that shone a new light on the series that led up to it, and caused me to wax nostalgic on the weird and wonderful ways the series makes its highly critical statements about the nature of corporate and monetary power, calling out those billies and corpos. Big picture, this game is fascinating, and small picture, this game is such a ride. It's tense and thrilling at the best of times, always intricate and detailed, and carries with it the kind of personal stakes that are a new and welcome addition to the series. Blockbuster gaming is still capable of a great many things, as evidenced by this game, an experience that feels sprawling and open to anything while being tightly constructed and purpose-driven, all while delivering high-concept action, interesting conceptual writing and narrative, not necessarily the dialogue, and I can't remember the last time a game got my heart rate this high. It's a scary game when it needs to be. Oh, you got a thing coming when you play this game. I do remember when I said Resident Evil Village was my game of the year, and it kind of is. The only problem with that statement is that I kept playing games, which is an inherently hazardous prospect for any kind of favorites statement. 2021 might be the year I have played the fewest games from in a while, but it's the year that something important came into our world. It is really difficult to talk about how difficult it was for me to parse this game that was very difficult for me. How do you even conceive of a sequel to Outer Wilds? How do you even add to Outer Wilds? I loved Outer Wilds, like a lot. Still do. In fact, it's a game whose significance continues to grow in my mind years after having initially finished it because of what it helped me realize about things and myself. There's a reason I keep bringing it up in every video that I put together, like I'm doing right now. It's big, scary, overwhelming, and at times intimidatingly cryptic, but still manages to be poignant and oddly joyful at times. This is a game that jumped out from around a corner and surprised the crap out of me, but did so in a really slow and methodical way. You couldn't have prepared me for what Outer Wilds was doing if you had assembled a curriculum and taught a class on those doings leading up to me finally playing it. For more on that, see the video I made on it. Echoes of the Eye, the 2021 downloadable sequel-like scenario that exists completely within the base game, calling into question exactly what to refer to this entry as, like its surrounding predecessor, is a game that is also going to jump out and surprise you, but in a much more upfront and obvious way. It is pretty blatant with what you are supposed to get out of it, even if I might argue it is even more obscuringly opaque than the behemoth that exists around it. I honestly really wrestled with how much of the visuals to show off in this segment, because there is an insignificant thing that happens pretty early on in the play of the game that, when it hit me for the first time, floored me. I was terrified and speechless for nearly 10 seconds before audibly cheering while I was alone in my apartment playing this game. I relate this anecdote to you here to illustrate how Outer Wilds still got it. The game can make you readjust your entire perspective just by showing you what it has up its sleeve. It's still an astounding experiment, the way it teaches you inch by inch everything you need to know about what's around you, until suddenly you realize that understanding lies beyond the boundaries you believe to be foundational to even playing the game. Outer Wilds is now a game that I can say did that to me twice. Echoes of the Eye is an incredible experience, and it's everything I could have hoped for when the prospect of an Outer Wilds 2 comes up. But contrary to what I put forward in the Resident Evil video, it didn't pull the top podium spot of my game of the year. There is a hiccup in my appreciation of the game that has stopped me up, and I need to do a lot of thinking and wondering on this one before I talk about how much I liked it, even if I think it's still pretty amazing. Its very existence is encouraging. I'm so glad there's a team of designers out there who believe as strongly as I do that games like this have a place in the landscape. It should be my favorite game of the year, if not for its biggest obstacle, the number one game of the year for me. And I normally try not to let numbering mean anything on these kinds of lists, but, you can more or less assume number one is there for a reason. Wouldn't you know it? The number one game from 2021 so far, Inscription. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a game out there that is a Magic the Gathering style deck builder facilitating a Dungeons and Dragons style adventure across a table map overseen by a mysterious and creepy dungeon master who is constantly hidden in shadow save for an ever-present set of eyes that never stop looking at you, all taking place within the confines of an escape room, the clues to the puzzles therein hiding within the role-playing card game at its core. Has Daniel Mullins been reading my dream journal? Yeah, people were right. This game was basically made for me. Everything from the setting, to the aesthetic, to the concept, to the sound design. How did this game know how much I love the sound of cards shuffling around and stuff? The pieces moving around the table, the weights falling onto the scale, the utterly hollowing sound of the Game Master's voice sounding like the adults in the Peanuts cartoons, except terrifying. Sign me up! Sign me up like crazy. A game that is ostensibly about the player fighting against the strictures of a game environment, impeding their progress, in this case represented by the concept of free agency and the distinct lack thereof, that works weirdly hard to undercut that very theme at almost every turn, was exactly what I had hoped it would be, and more. I'm sure that if you've heard of this game, whoever told you about it will finish with the note that it goes to some places, italicized and bolded, and they're not wrong. There's a whole bunch of stuff about this game that would be reckless for me to put on the screen in the way that I'm doing right now, because this is a game best served going in as blind as possible. There's a lot to this game that may just come off as really overblown show and tell to some, but I found something in almost every inch of this game to pore over and to be into. It's a game I'm already writing about in a more thorough sense, so if you were wondering about the subject of the next video, there it is. Placed over top of an incidental background picture for your viewing pleasure. Is that enough time? Inscription made it to the top of my list of favorite things from the year, primarily because of how much I want to tell the world about it. If you think this game is even 20% your kind of thing, then I implore you to acquire and play it when you can. Inscription was a game that didn't just stick in my brain, it infested it. Even when I hated it, I couldn't bring myself to ever dislike it. There is so much I want to say right now, but I gotta save it for the video. But really, you are better off going in on your own as you are. I can only hope I've convinced you in some way to give it a think, because I think you'll think it's worth it. I want to say thank you to everybody for watching this video, and if this isn't your first video of mine you've watched, then thank you for continuing to watch what I put here. It's been a really good year here on the channel, and none of that would have been possible without all of you. If you'd like to support the channel directly, then please do take a look at my Patreon, where you can find bonus materials and mostly regular updates on stuff I'm working on. If you just want to see what comes up here next, then please do all the things YouTubers ask you to do. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, run a mile, catch a fish, drink some coffee, learn the guitar, try a new food, run barefoot in a field, enjoy a movie with hot cocoa, sing a song like you don't care who hears, make the things you fear fear you, quit your office job and become a penguin tamer.